Good evening. Welcome to our program, Honoring Tanisha Anderson, addressing police accountability and mental health crisis solutions. This has been developed and is sponsored by our Social Justice Law Center. My name is Brian Adamson. My pronouns are he, him, and I am Associate Dean for Diversity and Inclusion here at Case Western Reserve University School of Law. And it is my honor to welcome you here and to welcome the family and relatives of Tanisha Anderson, who we know that we're celebrating her life and legacy 10 years after her tragic death. Her life was taken by law enforcement response during a mental health crisis. Specifically, I want to acknowledge, I think the elected officials have yet to arrive, but I wanted to acknowledge them. However, but this afternoon, through dialogue, presentation, testimony, and song, presenters will provide insights on how traditional American policing leads to such tragedies as what we understood and know about with Tanisha, and explore the various legal barriers that serve to obstruct accountability, redress, and healing, and share proposed solutions aimed at avoiding future tragedies. According to a recent study published in the American Journal of Public Health just this past spring, researchers examined officer-involved fatalities by officers by victims presenting behavioral health episodes. Here's what was born out of that study. Total number of injured persons by police officers between the years of 2015 and 2021 was 10,615. Those presenting behavioral episodes was roughly 22% of those, or 2,402. Those fatally shot by police officers, of those who were presenting behavioral health episodes, over 67%, 1,611. And inexcusably, we know that fatal encounters of black women with police officers are significantly less likely to garner media attention or certainly collective outrage. Black women and girls are more likely than any other group of women to be killed by the police. Black women make up around 10% of the population in America, the female population, yet they account for 1/5 of all women killed by police and almost 1/3 of unarmed women killed by the police. Black women have been killed by police in their homes, in their cars, in the company of parents, and in front of their children. Girls as young as 7 and as women as old as 93 have been killed by police. And we all know too well that these people and the impact that they have on their lives and their loss has on our lives is more than just data and statistics. These are human beings. These are our daughters, mothers, aunts, sisters, nieces, women, girls, sons, fathers, brothers, uncles, nephews, cousins, men, boys. Say their names: Charlene Lyles, Breonna Taylor, India Kagan, Michelle Shirley, Kayla Moore, Michelle Cousseau, Tanisha Anderson, and so many more. We should, in saying their names, honor their memory, and we should honor and lift those who fight endlessly to make their invisible lives more visible and advocate for change that benefits not only for those whom we fight, but for those, so that those, regardless of race, ethnicity, or creed or identity, do not suffer the same fate. Because here's the deal: people with mental illness deserve a system that reduces trauma and tragedy. Every person with mental illness should have access to robust community mental health care that includes alternatives to policing during a crisis. And while police should not be the first responders to many crises involving people with mental illness, it is critical that law enforcement have the tools, the resources, and the training to reduce the use of force when they do not respond. In addition to training, we need to understand that they need to understand how to engage in de-escalation tactics. And in closing, we are proud of the work that Professor Hardaway is doing and does and the work of her students on behalf of CWRU's Student Legislative Initiative Center. And we also appreciate and honor the work that Cleveland City Council members Rebecca Mara and Stephanie House Jones are doing with co-sponsoring and advancing Tanisha's Law. Thanks to you for all in this quest for justice, for bending the arc of moral universe that much more closer to justice. We thank you. So in a bit of housekeeping, and then I'll introduce Professor Hardaway. Restrooms are to the left here, and we all know after the event there will be a reception, and you see the food there. We'll just repair here after the program. But now it's my pleasure to introduce Aisha Hardaway, who is Professor of Law and Director of the Social Justice Law Institute at Case Western Reserve University, and also the Director of our Social Justice Initiative here at the university. Hardaway's research and scholarship interests include the intersection of race and the law, constitutional law, criminal law, policing, and civil litigation. She has represented individuals who are unable to represent themselves unable to represent themselves in courts, and represents pro bono clients in the law clinic, in the health law clinic, in the civil litigation clinic, the criminal clinic, and as director of the criminal clinic, Professor Hardaway uses a client-centered pedagogical framework to instruct and to supervise her students and represent her clients or their clients. Professor Hardaway's expertise and analysis has been featured on air and in print. Her influential voice has been heard on CNN, including The Situation Room, Wolf Blitzer on ESPN, on USA Today, with the Associated Press, Rolling Stone magazine, New York Times magazine, New York Times newspaper, U.S. News and World Report. And as director of the Social Justice Law Center and of the university's Social Justice Institute, Professor Hardaway serves students and the broader community, like she is doing today in this program, in the exploration of pressing social justice issues through research, community engagement and activism, guest lectures, and curricular offerings. It is now my pleasure to introduce Professor Aisha Hardaway.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. And thank you for joining us today as we take this time to commemorate the life and legacy of Tanisha Anderson. Tomorrow, November 12th, 2024 will mark 10 years since her family's call for help was met with unspeakable violence and indifference. As you will hear today, directly from the family, they've been on a constant journey to make sure that Tanisha's legacy lives on in a positive way. That the lessons learned from the loss of her life might ensure that others experiencing health crises are met with compassion and care, not deadly force. I never had the honor to meet Tanisha, and I know that that's true for many of us who are sitting here today. But as we will hear and see throughout today's program, Tanisha has impacted so many inside and outside of Northeast Ohio. For example, we have Monica Heiser from Baltimore, Maryland, who's with us here virtually. Monica is a visual artist, art educator, and activist who created an acrylic painting named Stars in Heaven. Monica shares that the painting was created in 2015 during the uprisings in her city following the killing of Freddie Gray. Monica also shared with me that the painting features Tanisha in her cap and gown at the center to draw attention to the Black women who have been killed as a statement to Tanisha's life and legacy. Over the next hour, you will get a glimpse of that national impact. And then we'll round out our discussion by bringing the focus back to what is being done here in Cleveland locally, including the recent introduction of Tanisha's Law for consideration by the Cleveland City Council. First up, though, is a dramatization written by an acclaimed and award-winning playwright, Celeste Bedford Walker from Texas. The piece, entitled Nini, was created in 2020 as a part of an event hosted by Honor Roll called Say Their Names, Plays and Monologues about Black Indigenous women of color who died at the hands of law enforcement. Ms. Bedford Walker shared with us that she was moved to write this piece about Tanisha Anderson, entitled Nini, because Tanisha reminded Celeste of her own sister, Riri. Riri also had encounters with police when she was in need of mental health services. Celeste recognizes that Tanisha's story could have easily been Riri's story. The dramatization you're about to watch is written by Miss Bedford Walker and performed by Lisa N. Nicholson. Lisa N. Wilkerson. For the record, her name is Wilkerson. Thank you.
Tanisha Anderson, Nini, by Celeste Bedford Walker. A young woman on stage, tall, attractive, Afro, model-like. She is a sister to Tanisha Anderson. She speaks as herself and also represents the words and thoughts of various family members.
They keep asking me, "Are you okay?" No, I'm not. I am tired and traumatized, stressed and mad as hell. We're in 2020 and ain't shit changed. Almost 6 years ago, my beautiful sister, Tanisha Anderson, died while in Cleveland police custody. She was killed in a senseless act of violence by police when we specifically called for a welfare check to help during a mental health crisis. Tanisha was unarmed, nonviolent, begging for help, and was murdered by excessive force from CPD officers. She died on the concrete in front of my mother's house with a knee in her back. Who am I? I am her sisters. I am her mother. I am her daughter. I am her brother. I am her auntie. I am her uncles. We are all the pieces of her grieving chorus. We called her Nini. Nini was an extremely loving and giving person. She was outgoing, silly, always joking. And when she gave me her stamp of approval, she would say, "You go, girl." She suffered from mental illness, true, bipolar and schizophrenic, but she had been doing good for a while. Mental illness is like that. One day she hit a discordant note and paid for it with her life. People like Tanisha are often victimized and criminalized for having mental health issues, and they never receive justice. It's not fair. If only we had never made that call, but we were just trying to get my sister some help. But that night, Nini went to bed early. And I know she said her prayers because she always got down on her knees by the side of her bed and said her prayers. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed would be thy name. But just in case the prayers didn't work, she slept every night with the family pet pit bull Drama by her side. Well, later that night, the lights started flickering off and on and off and on, off and on. Like, what the what? Maybe Nini was up making tacos, but no, she was pacing back and forth, flipping the lights off and on, all over the house, off and on, saying stuff. And Mother tried to stop her. "Nini, what's wrong with you, baby? Why are you turning the lights off and on like that?" She got loud, agitated, and argumentative. She'd had episodes like this before, saying she was seeing things and hearing things. It could be scary. Well, that night, she wanted to go outside in the cold in only her nightgown. And we couldn't let her do that. She'd freeze to death. But she was getting combative and we couldn't handle her, so we called for mental health assistance. We were waiting on an ambulance when the damn cops showed up, responding to a disturbing the peace call, they said. Now, at first, it seemed like everything was going to be okay. They were calming her down. We were talking it through. We were all on the same frequency. And Mother said, I think you ought to go to St. Vincent Charity Medical Center for an evaluation, Tanisha. And Tanisha said, yes, Mom. She wanted to go. She wanted help. Her sweet melody was returning. But when she got outside, the cops slapped cuffs on her like she was a murderer and tried to shove her into the back seat of the squad car. And she gets anxious in tight spaces. Nene said, no, I changed my mind. Ma'am, you got to come with us. No, I don't want to go. Ma'am, I can't change my mind. Ma'am, I'm within my rights to decide whether or not I want to go in for a voluntary evaluation. Ma'am, let me go. I have the right to refuse. Ma'am, I know my rights. Ma'am, the family jumped in. Let her go. She's not under arrest. She didn't do nothing. We'll find another way to get her some help. Let her go. But they were hell-bent on taking her somewhere, to jail for all we knew. Ma'am, get in the car. Get in the car, ma'am, or we're going to have to tase you. They started scuffling with her, trying to shove her back into the car. Mother pleaded, talk to her, just talk to her. The cops slammed her head down on the concrete sidewalk in front of our house. It was a takedown move. They didn't have to do that. And on top of that, her dress was lifted up above her waist, taking away all of her dignity. My brother started to run out there with his jacket to cover her up, but we pulled him back, scared they were going to shoot him. We kept screaming, stop, stop, pull her dress down. She can't breathe, call for the ambulance. But they wouldn't do anything we asked, wouldn't render any aid. They just sat on her. We were screaming. Nene was screaming. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. She can't breathe. She can't breathe. Let her up. Let her up. Call the ambulance. She called for Mother. Mommy, help, help. And then she started praying, our Father. Then she started asking, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come forever. Tanisha Anderson left this earth November 12th, 2014. The cops got 10 days paid leave and restricted desk duty. They said she died from a heart attack. A heart attack. Lies. Tanisha was only 37 years old. She didn't have heart trouble, but they didn't care. She was just a crazy, angry Black woman to them. But slowly, my rage turned into gratitude for her brief life. We forever honor Tanisha's life and legacy, and we hope her story and Tanisha's law will bring about a change in educating the police on how to interact with someone with mental illness. If that happens, Tanisha did not die in vain. So speak up for victims of police violence, especially those who suffer from mental health issues. And say her name, Tanisha. Tanisha Anderson. We called her Nene. Say her name.
The end.
We have the great honor, the great privilege of having members of Tanisha's family here with us today. And in preparation for this moment, we had a conversation, and I know that some would like to share their thoughts and some remarks. So I'm going to ask members of the family to share a few words at this time. Yeah. Hi. Are you Mavian? Yeah. What a pleasure to meet you.
Yep. Hey, y'all. I'm out of breath. I was running. Don't mind me. So, yeah, I'm Avion Green. Currently, I am a daycare teacher. I teach toddlers out in Rock River. And I also am a massage therapist. So, honestly, just through life, I've learned to just choose happiness other than revenge or sadness. Um, God got me through everything in my life. He's got me through the dark times, the good times, and just not the so great times. But I choose to just be happy, despite over what's going on in my life, despite what is around me. I just choose peace. Um, I don't have any kids yet, but my mother always told me that my name meant the mother of the earth. So when I do have children, I'll be the greatest mom ever, just like she was. Um, I don't have too much to say 'cause I don't want to talk too much or cry. But thank you all for coming. Thank you for continuing to say her name. Say her name, say her name. Her name means everything to me. Tanisha Anderson, that is my mother. That's my mommy. Always. Just say her name. Thank you.
How you doing? Good afternoon. Yeah, I need some energy. I'm her nephew, Jacob B. Johnson. What I remember most is her infectious laugh. Oh my goodness. Okay, so if you didn't even know what the joke was, you were gonna laugh based on hearing her laugh. It was just that hilarious. Um, but I find comfort in the understanding and knowing that she chose Jesus, that Jesus was her choice, and her also being a long-term member of the choir of our church, Unlimited Power Temple of Deliverance. So if you need some good Jesus, come on over there. Um, the song that she led in our church choir was "I Can Go to the Rock." When everything else fails, I go to the rock. When trouble surrounds me, I can go to the rock because he promised that he would keep me if I abide in his holy word. So no matter what the problem, I can go to the rock. And I find the rock to be the Bible. I find the rock to be Jesus Christ. And he has not only kept us, he's still keeping us, and he's going to keep us. And justice will prevail because God is always in the midst of it. So thank you all for everything you've been doing. Uncle Mike, thank you for spearheading this. Case, thank you. Thank you. And again, just all love, all peace, and keep God first.
I'd like to say good evening to everyone, and Tanisha was my niece. And this is very hard, but it's a good thing for my family. I was very, very close to my niece. We shared so many precious moments, and to group, I was trying to think of what words would that I could group up to describe how I feel our family feel as a whole. And the two words I came up with were sad and happy.
Yeah.
We are sad because we lost the most beautiful person in the world. She had a good heart. She loved everybody, even if she didn't know you. And I was the first person that arrived at the hospital. And I really hope that in the future, even the delivery of telling any family member that they lost someone will be more better. When I came in the back, they said it was 3 policemen. They said she's back there. And when I went back there, you know, I thought she was sedated. I feel this should have been a more, you know, better presentation that I had lost my niece. Now the other side, the happy side, we are happy that my brother and his team have been diligent in being persistent in reaching out for justice. Justice must be done. And she will live always in our hearts. And I'm so proud of my brother and each person here that loves Nene. Some we don't know by name that has been very instrumental in helping. So we're just glad. God bless you all.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jennifer Johnson. I am the sister of Tanisha Anderson. I have a lot to say. There's so many things that's going through my mind, but what stands out for me is me and my sister being pregnant at the same time. She was pregnant with Mavion. I was pregnant with Jacob, and we both lived in the same house. So we had this thing for carrot cake. So we both love carrot cake, and I would just be praying if I leave out the house, I'm like, ooh, I hope she don't eat all the cake up before I get back. So if that did happen, she would go out and buy a whole nother one. So that was what I missed about her. Also going shopping. Shopping was a pleasure, going shopping with her, because she always took all day in the store. I was like one of those old men, pull up a chair, get a magazine, because I'm going to be here for a while. So that was our thing. That's what I miss the most, those memories, those things that we did together as sisters. And when you no longer have that sister, that's a part of you that's gone. You can't get it back. So if you have sisters, brothers, cherish each moment, the time that you have. Call and check up on each other, love on each other, because you never know. One moment they here, the next moment they can be gone. So say what you need to say while you still have breath in your body. And I don't want her death to be in vain. You know, they said the great ones always come about change. She was a great one. And this is going to be the change, is what we need. So say her name.
Yes.
Uh, my name is Michael Anderson. I am the uncle of Tanisha Anderson. This is my wife, Shy April. But I want to thank everybody for coming. There's a lot that could be said, but one of the things that I think I'm gonna walk away with was what my niece was referring to when it came to dignity. Pretty much, she didn't use the word dignity, but that's what I grabbed from it. Um, the way she left this earth was that's what drove me. And then the family kind of got weak as far as going legally. We kind of got weak, um, and that was okay because everybody grieved differently. But once my sister passed, I knew then that that was the mission because that was her fight. Actually, it wasn't so much of what happened to Tanisha that took her down. It was how the city treated her. And she really couldn't deal with that. So I do appreciate everyone for coming. Let's have a good time. This is not just a commemoration of the 10th year of the proposal of Tanisha's Law. Let's hear it for that. But also it's a celebration of her life and what's to come. And so Tanisha's Law, I know, I don't even hope, I know that's what's going to be, because she would be able to, or it would be able to change so many people's lives who are suffering from mental health issues. And with that, thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you to the family for taking the time to share this important moment with us here. I was saying earlier, for those of you who are just coming in, I was saying earlier about how Tanisha's reach really has been national. And our next speaker is joining us virtually via Zoom. Peter Letty is zooming in from Madison, Wisconsin. Peter is a disability rights advocate, speaker, writer, and more, who will share with us a piece that he wrote about Tanisha and police violence in 2020.
Hi, I'm Peter Lady, and I'm doing a sound check right now. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, it's an honor to just have a few words with you. I live in Wisconsin. I was moved is one word. I was a lot of things when I heard about the death of Tanisha Anderson, and I know that I didn't hear about it right away because sometimes we don't hear about this kind of thing right away. And there was about 4 months, 4 months after Ms. Anderson died, a 19-year-old man just a mile from my house here in Madison, unarmed, black young man killed by police, who was also having a mental health crisis. And Tony Anderson was his name, say his name too. And, it starts to hit close to home. And if you're like me, who goes through life, untouched in some ways by some things that a lot of other folks deal with on a daily basis, I think I sort of reached a point where I've had it, and I can't stand another story of someone having a mental health crisis of some kind, and instead of the end of the story being I got the help I needed, the end of the story was a tragic one. And because of the work that I do in the field of disabilities and mental health, I know a lot of people that have both privately and publicly had an emotional crisis of some kind, and help was needed immediately. And what was not needed was force of any kind at all. Certainly not weapons, certainly not physical aggression. What was needed was help with de-escalation and a calming presence rather than a frightening presence. And from Wisconsin to Ohio, I say I'm just so sorry for the loss for Tanisha Anderson's family and your community, and I hope and pray, and I'm determined to work within my community when someone is in crisis to help make change. And I think it's so important. I think Tanisha's Law, when Tanisha's uncle, Mr. Michael Anderson, was telling me about this, I'm happy that, as others have said, her death won't be in vain, and that the response in the future will be from from mental health professionals working when necessary in conjunction with law enforcement, meeting emotional crisis with gentleness and true empathy rather than force. And I think I will leave it at that. And again, say thanks for letting me weigh in from here in Wisconsin.
Next, we've all been using this hashtag all afternoon for the entirety of this program. I'm delighted to share that we have representatives from the African American Policy Forum who work to bring awareness to the often invisible names and stories of Black women and girls who have been victimized by police violence through the Say Her Name campaign and the Mothers Network. At this time, please join me in welcoming Glenda Smiley and Lisa Gissendaner.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to every hand who has touched this event for gathering the community to celebrate Tanisha Anderson's life. And thank you for inviting us to join you in remembering her. My name is Glenda Smiley, and I send you greetings on behalf of the founder, executive director of the African American Policy Forum, Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, who teaches today, which is why she couldn't be here. She's teaching at Columbia Law School today. I am joined by my colleague, my sister, my soror, Lisa, and we stand here together, united in love and remembrance for Tanisha Anderson and also her mother, Cassandra, who was a part of the Say Her Name Mothers Network. Today, we honor their love and legacy, and we renew our commitment to fighting for justice for Tanisha Anderson's name and for all Black women and girls who have been harmed by police violence. Tanisha was more than a hashtag. She was a daughter, a sister, a mother, a niece, a friend to many, a member of this community. And her warmth and love touched those who knew her. And in her passing, her story has touched me like so many others. She reminds us that Black women have borne an unjust and painful weight in this country. Tanisha's life mattered, and her death is a call to action that cannot be ignored, and so we won't. At the African American Policy Forum, we will not ignore it. Today, we lift up her memory, but we also call to attention the broader crisis. Through Say Her Name, we amplify the stories of Black women like Tanisha Anderson, who have been unjustly taken from us by police violence. We honor their lives and we show up to stand beside their families. We honor their lives, and in this spirit, we also lift up the memory of Cassandra Johnson, Tanisha's mother, who fought tirelessly for her justice. At Say Her Name, we recognize that the violence of the police unfortunately does not stop at the victims of the initial encounter. But we acknowledge the ways in which entire families and communities bear the wounds of injustice. We honor Mother Cassandra Johnson and all the loved ones who have lost their own lives grieving and fighting for the recognition of their daughter's passing and resisting the loss of the loss.
Good evening, everyone. The Say Her Name Mothers Network and the African American Policy Forum, we are committed to breaking the silence surrounding Black women and police violence. We remember names that far too often are ignored, and we affirm the dignity and worth of each woman whose life has been cut short. To Tanisha's family, we say you are not alone. We stand with you, and we are in this fight with you side by side. Your strength and resilience remind us of why we keep going, even when the journey is hard. the African American Policy Forum, and the Say Her Name Mothers Network pledge to keep Tanisha's name alive, to ensure her story is remembered, and to push justice in her name.
Tanisha's life, her dreams, her story, her legacy, they continue through her family, they continue through each of us. We are here not just to mourn, but to demand change. And with that, I want to say congratulations for your resiliency in pushing Tanisha's law. May it meet success. May we continue fighting until it meets success. We are here today from New York for me and from Canton for Lisa, because this community, this country, we cannot and must not continue to turn a blind eye to this issue. We demand accountability, and we demand a future where Black women and girls are safe, are protected, and where Black women in crises are met with care, not violence.
So let us move forward today, carrying Tanisha's light and lifting her memory. Together, we'll keep building a world that truly values Black lives, a world where each person is met with compassion, dignity, and respect. Thank you for standing with us, and thank you for standing for Tanisha.
Justice for Tanisha Anderson. Say her name.
And I just wanted to say to you, Jacob, you mentioned about Tanisha had an infectious laugh, and I know exactly where she got that laugh from. When I walked in, I saw Mother Cassie's sister, and they just looked just alike to me. And I remember when they came to New York, Jennifer and her mom came to New York to one of our events, and Mother Cassie was just sitting there quietly, not really saying much at the time. But I don't know what was said, but she just had this laugh that probably where Tanisha got it from. Yep. And it just brightened up all the other mothers in the network, and it just made our weekend, because she would just start laughing for no reason. But I'm just so thankful for the opportunity to be here with the family, and thank you, Brother Michael, for pushing this. Thank you.
At this time, Larry Heller will provide an update on the existing care and co-response models in our region. Mr. Heller serves as the outreach coordinator for the Northeast Ohio Recovery Association, whose mission is to identify unmet needs in our community and to develop community collaborations to address those needs. Larry also serves as a member of Cleveland's Mental Health Response Advisory Committee, among many other organizations. Please join me in welcoming Larry Heller.
Thank you for the honor and privilege to speak here today. Today we're remembering Tanisha Anderson and the lessons learned, how a community responds to its most vulnerable. So many people here today have expressed much better than I ever could some of the personal aspects of this case. So I'm going to try to limit myself to systemic issues. As you know, there was a great deal of response immediately after the incident where we lost Tanisha. It was on the television news, radio news. It was a topic of conversation probably in every single organization in Greater Cleveland for a few days. That's how important news things work. They last a few days. But there were a lot of narratives going on. A lot of them informed, a lot of them less so. Some people had the whole story, that compelling, that very moving story, that the situation that we just heard about was so moving. But very few people knew all that. Most people had a soundbite they heard in the news. But still, it was a topic of conversation throughout our city. And I really applaud the family, Michael and the rest of the family, for trying to keep some of that momentum going and getting us here, getting us to Tanisha's Law, which is a great milestone and also a great stepping stone toward the next future events. So as we discussed, there were a lot of narratives going on. Some of the narratives we may not have known, but one thing that many of us have heard, we've all been told, when that initial call came in, it was considered a low priority call. I think it was pretty high priority for that family, but it was considered a low priority call. That's a systemic issue. How are those determinations made? So for several years, for many, many years, there have been efforts at police reform, locally and nationally. There have been studies about police reform for more than 100 years. And every single major national study about police reform has had the same findings, noted the same needs, that one of the greatest problems is the police are being asked and assigned to do things that are not proper for police work, such as responding to mental health crises. That's not a criminal matter. That's not proper police work. And we have known that for over 100 years. And it took a tragedy like this to compel some action to try to change that. So at least some action will come from this, and is coming from this, and continues to come from this. If anyone in this room ever encounters a situation where someone needs to call emergency help for a loved one, will the outcome be different? I'm glad to say that because of the work spurred by the loss of Tanisha, because of the family's efforts, because they were able to convene a collaboration, community members, to help keep this momentum going and keep working, today there's a good chance there could be a difference for many families in the same situation. So back about the time all this happened, there were several other events in the news about the same time. Some of you may remember the 132 shots. So the U.S. Department of Justice came in to investigate the Cleveland Division of Police. They found patterns and practices that need to be changed. Several community organizations made recommendations. We're able to meet with the Department of Justice and with the U.S. Attorney and make recommendations. They became part of a consent decree between the city of Cleveland and the Cleveland Division of Police. Consent decree is a legal document. It's enforced by a court. There are certain provisions and requirements. And there's a monitoring team who tracks progress toward meeting all those. There were a number of issues identified in that consent decree. One was civilian oversight of police, which does make a difference, and which we just reinforced and made stronger with a recent ballot initiative that made it permanent here in Cleveland, because the consent decree was only temporary. Civilian oversight is an effective safeguard. It's not the answer, it's not the whole thing, but it certainly helps. And it's not our topic today, but civilian oversight probably is also needed at the county jail. But that's a whole separate topic. The consent decree also created a mental health response advisory committee, on which I'm proud to serve. The committee reviews policies and procedures, reviews training, makes recommendations, especially reviewing recommendations regarding the CIT, Crisis Intervention Team, and the co-responder team. One of the things that happened very early during the Mental Health Response Advisory Committee, one of the early recommendations that was Cleveland Police started up a co-responder pilot project. I think that was back about 2015 they first started it. It was real early. They did a 2-year pilot project. And they actually had social workers ride with police when there was a mental health crisis, so that people who were trained mental health professionals were on scene and could respond. It was a pilot project. It was for 2 years. The evaluations were in. It was wonderful. It got great response, so it ended. Unfortunately, it was a pilot, and there was no plan to keep it going. But because it was so effective, plans began to bring it back. And I'm happy to say that I think it was about a year ago, they launched a permanent co-responder plan. It's not yet in every district and on all shifts, but it's approaching that. It's moving toward that. And there is currently a co-responder program here in Cleveland where social workers show up on scene with Cleveland Police. But you have to know to ask for that. I constantly ask myself, if someone here encountered a similar situation and had to call for help for their family or for a loved one, would the response be different? The answer is yes, if they know that there is an option and they know to ask for it. So there is the possibility that the response could be different, but it's not a guarantee yet. We need to expand on that. We need to keep building on that. Tanisha's Law is wonderful progress. Tanisha's Law brings about a greater systemic approach to crisis care and crisis response. Okay? And we've already seen some efforts toward that. There are crisis response teams. There are cities starting their own teams. Shaker Heights has had one for a couple of years. The city of Cleveland finally just launched their pilot project for their care response team. It's official now. They're up and running. They're active. They're doing a pilot project in 2 zip codes, in 44102 and 44105. It's a pilot project, but we have asked the question and we have been assured that this pilot project will not just end and stop at the termination, that there will be funds available and there will be a way to keep it going. Okay? It's taken 10 long years of hard work to get here, but Tanisha's Law is a great milestone and also a great stepping stone because we're not done yet. Tanisha's Law is a great milestone, but we need that stepping stone for what we still need. We're working on bits and pieces of crisis response and care response. We're getting much better, but we're not there yet. It's not common knowledge. Anyone in our community who needs food stamps knows that food stamps are available and knows how to get them, right? People know that there's such a thing as a supplemental nutrition assistance, but people don't know there is crisis response. People don't know there is care response. They don't know there's a co-responder program. How do we make the knowledge that universal? That's on all of us. That's up to us to help make that knowledge universal. If there's any media here today, we hope you will help in that. Okay? We need crisis centers. So right now there is some better response we could receive if someone was faced with a similar situation. But there isn't really much that the family could have done preemptively. We still don't have any place with guaranteed, unrestricted, universal access that people could just walk in and show up and be certain of admission. We started up our diversion center. The County Diversion Center is a great resource, and it helps many people in similar situations. But it's not universal access. They don't admit everyone. There are eligibility requirements. Any place that requires a phone call automatically puts up a barrier against someone who doesn't have a phone. Any place that requires verification of residency in the county automatically puts up a barrier against anyone who's experiencing homelessness, who doesn't have an ID, who doesn't have a birth certificate, who doesn't have a permanent address, doesn't get mail. We put up all these barriers. Okay, how are we doing on time? Okay, all right. So this milestone is a stepping stone, but our overarching goal involves helping our society to reach a point where we do not discriminate whether due to mental health or race or any other reason, and where every resident has a fair and equal and real access to whatever they need for help. This is a milestone and a stepping stone. If anyone needs help, remember, there's 988. There's the helpline at 216-623-6888. There's a text line, 741-741. Anybody that needs to know these, please see me afterward, okay? If you need help, please remember those numbers. 988 is real simple. It's a mental health alternative to 911. Thank you very much.
And as we enter the home stretch of today's program, I would be remiss not to mention Case Law School's Student Legislative Initiative of Cleveland, along with the sustained leadership efforts of Michael O'Donnell and Alex Mendez-Diaz. Michael and Alex can't be with us today. They graduated last year and they're off working in their careers in Illinois and Pennsylvania. But they didn't leave us before working for nearly a year and a half with Mr. Anderson on draft legislation to codify an alternative approach to government response, to law enforcement response to our fellow community members in need of help. If there are any other members of the SLIC community present, are there other members of SLIC present? No? Okay. But the fruits of SLIC's efforts culminated in draft legislation that has been introduced, and that's going to take us to our final guest for today. Councilwoman Stephanie House Jones represents Ward 7, including Asiatown, Downtown, Huff, and the St. Clair Superior neighborhoods. Prior to joining Cleveland City Council, Councilwoman House Jones served as an Ohio State representative, educator, consultant, and engineer. From 2015 to 2022, she represented the 11th District in the Ohio House of Representatives. She's been serving City Council since 2020 and previously served a short stint in 2008. The events of November 12, 2014 occurred in one of the areas that that Councilwoman House Jones is responsible for representing. Would you please join me in welcoming Councilwoman Stephanie House Jones?
Well, good evening, beautiful people. How's everybody doing?
Good evening.
I mean, goodness, today is absolutely a beautiful day. It really is. I mean, I'm just sitting on the sideline listening to Tanisha's families and those who have continued to say her name, and I'm just like, this is beautiful. This is community. And so thanks everybody for being here. In the time that I will be here, I just want to share, like, how do we get here? Again, when you come into serving in public office, there are a lot of times where people complain about all the things that are going wrong in our system. And we know there are numerous, right? But it's like, well, who gonna do this work, right? And so a lot of times when people say, well, I have this policy idea, I have this policy idea, you know, you try to ask questions. Was like, again, who's going to do this work? Because it's not just a matter of the legislator carrying on or trying to do the work. You know, there's a whole process in trying to make sure that you get support for it, and then who's going to help with the advocacy and put, you know, just doing a lot of the pushing and prodding that is needed to change the rules as we know it. And so in 2022, and I would say it was probably in the spring of 2022, Mr. Anderson reached out to me and he said, hey, you know, well, what you gonna do? We've been working on Tanisha's Law, really wanted to figure out how can we get this done. And, you know, a lot of times you read stuff and you're like, okay, I'm gonna get back to it. You know what I'm saying? And not to be dismissive, it's just like you have 50 million things coming at you all of the time, right? And so I'm really, really grateful that Mr. Anderson, he'd be like, hey, how you doing? Hey, Miss House, what's going on? What's up? You know, and it would be every so often I would get this email. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to do this. And so it finally came a moment where I actually had the opportunity to talk with Mr. Anderson earlier this year. And I said, okay, I got a little bit of a breath to actually start working on this, right? Because I'm not one of those people that will promise people the moon and the stars. I just don't do that. It is unhelpful. If you don't have the capacity to do something, you have to be honest with people. And you know, this created a time and a space where I had a little bit more capacity to do it. That is where in this I knew that Councilman Slife, he represents many of our policemen who live in his community and, has really been working on some things to work on police wellness. And then as I, was talking to my colleagues about it, a council member, Rebecca Mora, approached me and was like, hey, I've been, trying to do some of the stuff around the mental health space. I would love to be a partner. And so that's how the three of us came to be and to form, to work to what we have in front of you. It was absolutely based on the time and dedication, Mr. Anderson and the team of law students here at Case Western Reserve University Law School coming together and bringing something for us that we can digest. We started off having conversations with the administration, and as we knew we did not necessarily agree on everything, we as council members felt it very important, the conversations that we were having in City Hall, that they are vital to have in public. And so we made the decision, as in working, with Mr. Anderson to just to formally introduce the proposed Tanisha's Law, and then take the next several months to have conversations with the varying interested parties, because we know there are many, from the monitoring team, from the Department of Justice, from our mental health partners, from our first responders, including dispatch, EMS, police, and many others, from policy and, policy entities. So we know that there is a lot of it's work ahead from us, but we are up to the challenge. And we've committed to doing all that we can to ensure that what is proposed just this past Monday will actually become the law of Cleveland before we end our term, which I believe is January 3rd or 4th of 2026. And so what being here today, I guess I am going to come before on behalf of our mighty team to ask if those people who believe, who are here to commemorate her, not just to commemorate her at this moment from her death, but thinking about the legacy and become a real partner in advocacy, because we absolutely will need your help, time, and support. What's in Tanisha's Law is a couple of things. First, we are proposing to create a Department of Community Crisis Response. We believe that it is important to have a singular focus and champion on crisis here in the city of Cleveland, and we believe by standing up a new department, this will be a pathway to do it. What's also included in Tanisha's Law is actually to codify the thought of co-response and unarmed crisis response without a police. That is not mentioned in our laws. And if it is not written on paper, it is not real. And so we want to ensure that the work that we know we've made investments in pilot programming, that it will actually become official. And annually, we will be funding with our own dollars what it will be. From there, we want to have reporting requirements. Again, right now, that's part of the thing that people have asked about, well, how much would this cost the city and how many individuals will work in this department? And that's part of the conversation that we want to have over the next couple of months, because right now our data is not where it needs to be so that we can actually make an informed decision. We have to be able in a position as a city, when we are investing dollars, we absolutely should know what we are doing with it and what is our true return on investment. We believe that that is necessary and crucial in this day and age. And then finally, there are training requirements for everyone that is going to be a first responder. We believe that there should be a baseline standard of training, and then there should be additional training for those who will be in specialized units and things of that nature. So that is the culmination of what is being proposed of Tanisha's Law. We want to hear feedback from people. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And then come to a place where we can all create a win-win situation for community and public servants alike. So that is what we have put forth. I do have if people are interested, hey, I want to stay up to date, I want to stay informed, I do have a link where I can share with you and we can get all your contact information, and more importantly, know how you want to be communicated with. And that's it. And so before I end, Mr. Anderson and the team of the family of Tanisha Anderson, if you all just mind just indulging me for those who would like to just come on up here, I would like to also just give you a commemorative proclamation on behalf of my office and the Ward 7 community. And that's it.